Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Fourth and Frames. I am Rhett Manuel. I'm joined by my usual co-hosts, Drew Scott and Chris Battistello, and a couple of special guests from our Fantasy and Frames families tonight in Drew Marcum and the boss man, Jorge Edwards. Guys, tonight we're going to run into a 12-team half PPR tight end premium mock draft. Going to take an early look at who might go where in these early drafts tonight. Here we are at the beginning of June. So it is Fourth and Frames, and let's have some fun, people. So before we get up and running tonight, guys, please remember to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Anytime you get us on YouTube, please remember to rate and review the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. Remember to follow our show on Twitter at Fourth and Frames. A reminder for anybody who might be watching on Twitter that if you want to participate tonight and ask us some questions, go ahead and get involved in our YouTube channel. Hop on over there. Also remember that we've got this great thing going on, Mental Health Mondays, 9 a.m., we're going to be jumping on that. And also, please remember to show some love for our person who does all of our production for every Fantasy and Frames show. Gator J, we appreciate you so much, bud. So with that being said, I want to jump in really quickly. Let's get in some quick news and notes before we get into this podcast. Huge banger of news last Monday. DeAndre Hopkins, Nook, whatever you want to call him, released from the Arizona Cardinals. About $8.2 million in cap savings that the Cardinals are going to have in 2023, really going fully into that rebuild mode. But I wanted to start it off by asking you, Nate, this question. Who, after this DeAndre Hopkins release, is the biggest fantasy winner in Arizona?
I mean, the easy answer is probably say Hollywood Brown. You saw last year without Nook. He was the wide receiver 6 through the first 6 weeks. He was 4th in the league in targets. So I get the feeling there should be a funnel of targets coming his way. The second, you said the biggest, but an ancillary winner is probably James Conner. And realistically, when you take a weapon away, I realize that the offense itself is destined for that number 1 pick next year. But then again, they fed James Conner down the stretch last year. He was heavily involved in targets. He legitimate, RB2 towards the stretch. And all they did is get rid of any true threat. As far as I'm concerned, Corey Clement towards the end was a little bit, but I mean, let's be honest, no one's really eating in. And a healthy James Conner, as boring as it may be, as your RB3, I mean, but he definitely gains some benefit from Nook's absence.
Look, and I agree with you. And also, my sincerest apologies in the intro. I called you Drew instead of Nate. My sincerest apologies, man. I mean, I didn't mean to slap you in the face and disrespect you. So please come back.
Hey, disrespect?
No. What kind of name is Drew, anyhow? I know. It's
a compliment.
So, Jorge, I want to go ahead and ask you this question kind of on the fly right now. Nate brought up the idea of James Conner being a huge fantasy asset. In your opinion, not a huge fantasy asset, but with the fact that in all likelihood, this offense is going to be led by Colt McCoy to start the season, how much do you think this devalues those wide receivers in this locker room?
A lot. If anything, I think what you saw last year is that you saw an increased production from the tight end position with Zach Ertz up until the point where he tore his ACL. But, for me, there's a player that I'm really looking at in Arizona to be a beneficiary, if it is, in fact, Colt McCoy starting this year, is Trey McBride. We don't know if Ertz is actually going to be cut, if he's going to be, heading into the team roster. There, Courtney just said it right there. I hope McBride steps up big. So do I. Thanks for jumping in the chat there, Courtney. So, yeah, I'm excited for McBride. He had a couple of good games down the stretch of the season. Again, wasn't really that whole offense in Arizona was just a big cluster. This entire season after Kyler Murray went down. But I think, the tight end position, the short average depth of target, getting the ball out to those trusted hands there. McBride was selected rather high in the draft last year. So I could definitely see him having a good 2022 bounce. I don't know if bounce back's the right word, but definitely a huge step forward.
Possible YouTube breakout with Trey McBride. You're right about that. So, Chris, let's run into it, man. Now let's talk about DeAndre Hopkins. in your opinion, let's talk about potential best landing spots for D-Hop now that he's free to go wherever he wants.
Yeah, we've heard the reports of the Bills and the Chiefs being the front runners to land DeAndre Hopkins. But dark horse for me, fantasy-wise, the Detroit Lions. He goes into that team instantly being the 1B to Amon-Ra St. Brown's 1A. Jameson Williams is out for the first 6 games, so he has the opportunity to play mentor once he comes back in. They were top 6 in pass attempts last year, top 6 in pass yards, ahead of Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Trevor Lawrence, 2 guys that Hopkins says he wanted to play with. Not only that, he was top 5 in passing touchdowns ahead of Herbert, Rodgers, Dak, Lawrence, and Hurts. He did all that with Khalif Raymond, DJ Shark, and Josh Reynolds. Amon-Ra St. Brown last year, 6 TDs. Behind him, the next highest receiving total guys were Shane Zylstra and Brock Wright, both tied with 4. Jared Goff was a first overall pick, a guy that can definitely get the ball downfield. He was QB 13 in deep ball attempts. So DeAndre Hopkins, I know you're watching. Look at me in the eyes. Go kick the tires on the Detroit Lions. Forget about the Chiefs. Forget about the Bills.
So real quick, wasn't one of the 3 caveats that you had to be, or qualifications for the team that DeAndre Hopkins was going to join, had to be an elite defense?
Detroit's
one
young,
of 3. What? Go ahead.
Upcoming elite defense.
The clairvoyance of Chris is fantastic.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, let's not discount the Detroit Lions. Listen, they added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, man. That guy's a stud. So we know they have at least 1, 2 with Aiden Hutchinson as well. Yeah. So, hey, who knows? They might take a step forward this year. Drew, let's kind of change the question on the fly. With Colt McCoy very possibly potentially being that week 1 starting quarterback, let's just ask the nasty, dirty, ugly question. What's the best case scenario if Colt McCoy is the week 1 starter for Arizona in terms of his fantasy value?
I think he would be a very serviceable quarterback too in a 32-team league. But outside of that, I'm not touching an Arizona quarterback. Kyler Murray, he's practically free right now. I think underdog ADP is like quarterback 19. I don't even really want to touch him because if Arizona gets off to the slow start we expect them to, they're going to have no incentive to play him. They don't want to get out of the running of the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. And so I can't imagine taking a shot on any of the quarterbacks in Arizona right now whenever you have so many other options at the quarterback position. So I'm just really the Arizona offense as a whole, I'm just pretty much out. I'm going to let somebody else take the shot on those guys, and I'm going to look elsewhere.
Hey, but Kyler does look pretty good doing that slap boxing video he had the other day. So, who's to say? All right, let's move forward. Let's talk about Jimmy G a little bit. Jimmy Garoppolo had a foot surgery, and there are questions about whether he may be ready for week 1 and actually questions about his health overall. So, Nate, let's go ahead and throw this to you. Do you think there are any quarterbacks on Las Vegas's roster that are worthy of an ad if Garoppolo happens to not be ready for week 1?
On the roster? No. Off the roster, maybe if they were signed off the street, still probably no, but less emphatic of a no. Like, I'll give you the name Brian Hoyer. We'll all say no loud together. And then I have to say Aiden O'Connell. No one knows who that even is. Maybe you do if you went to whatever. I think you went to Purdue. So regardless, but there are some names out there free agent wise. And let me, put this to you guys. Is this the Trey Lance, talk? I know, as Stacey said, Brady's part owner for the Raiders, and that makes, somewhat sense in the fun pick. But Trey Lance isn't an option as far as I'm concerned. Carson Wentz or Teddy Bridgewater. Take your choice. Choose your destiny.
Aiden O'Connell.
Exactly.
Yeah, can we? Is none of the above an option? Can we choose that? Because that would be my selection for sure.
Listen, let's just go ahead and throw it out there. Let's let the Saints trade Jameis Winston over there, and let's let Devontae Adams have some fun.
Yes, I like that.
All right, so let's just go ahead and let's just talk it a little bit more. Let's start with you, Drew. What were your thoughts on just the football news in general that the Raiders may have included a waiver in the Garoppolo's contract for them to actually sign and give them some security.
Yeah, I mean, look, anytime you have a chance to give yourself an out on giving Jimmy G a contract, you got to do it. So I think it's smart on their part. And all, like, I say that jokingly because I am a Jimmy G hater for all the hype he got being propped up by the system that he was in San Francisco. I think he's been overhyped at this point in his career. But yeah, I mean, I don't blame Oakland they're not Oakland anymore. I don't blame Las Vegas for taking that route. And I don't know. The Raiders are going to Raider.
That's true. Chris, anything you want to add to that, man?
Yeah, I mean, there was that bit of a hiccup there when he was supposed to have that news conference where they weren't sure that they were actually going to bring him out. So they obviously found something that they didn't like in his medical report, still signed him, but probably put that in there after the fact saying, look, we'll bring you on. We've already said we'll bring you on. But if something wants to happen by week 1 and you can't start for us, we need that out so we're not tied to you. So I don't hate putting that in there. It's not as bad as a no video game clause in his contract like Kyler Murray.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So, guys, that was fun. Let's go ahead and let's move into why people are here tonight. Let's go ahead and let's talk about this mock draft and just a brief review of what we're going to be doing tonight. We have 13 rounds planned. We're going offensive players only tonight with a half PPR format, drafting one quarterback as your starter with a tight end premium. So that's something to keep in mind. Overall, we're going to have one quarterback starting, 2 backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 3 flex starters, and 4 bench players. So with that being said, let's get on the clock with the 1-1. That is our guest of honor, Nate Marcum. You are on the board and talk to us, baby.
Yeah, this is the dilemma. No, it shouldn't be a dilemma. The 101 shouldn't be a dilemma. The decision is which way do I want to, as said, choose your adventure earlier, but I want to take that path. Do I want to go the CMC path or I want to go the Justin Jefferson? You can make a case for Jamar Chase. I get it. Tight end premium, still too early for Kelsey. But I think that it's hard to pass up a 20-point per game average, which is what we basically saw out of McCaffrey last year with his time with San Francisco. Of course, the concern at quarterback worries me, but if there's ever concern at the quarterback position, what do? You feed it to, the best running back in the NFL, and that's Christian McCaffrey.
Love that. And then team 2 by computer, Austin Eckler goes into that 1-2. Our producer, Gator J, is in at the 1-3, and he's going to go ahead and he's going to let us know something real quick.
So, Nate, I want to ask you, man.
Mm-hmm. Wanted to ask him so much that he froze.
Yep.
Froze in his spot.
Well, there can't be 2 Drews at the same time talking, so we had to cut out so it could be him and then me.
There can only be one.
Only
Wait,
one.
Did I bounce?
Yep.
Yeah, you about dropped for a little bit. Interesting. Gator goes with Jonathan Taylor at the 1-3. Jorge, in a tight end premium like this and in a wide receiver heavier like everyone is anticipating this year being, what are your thoughts on Taylor going this early?
I feel like I wouldn't have taken Jonathan Taylor there. I get it. He's going to get tons of volume in this offense, which should be better. We should see him come back from that injury last year. A lot of shoulds. At the end of the day, let's just remember, folks, he had a really good rookie year, and then maybe the year after. But, the injuries are a concern. What to expect with this new offense in Indianapolis. I'm not saying he's not worthy of being a first-round pick, but for the half PPR nature of it, for the tight end premium, I wouldn't take Kelsey here necessarily either. But a receiving option for me, I think, is probably the safer bet at this point early in the draft in the first round. Yeah,
and Jamie Pirog agrees with you and says that Gator reached on that pick. But he made my life easy at the 1-4, and I went ahead and took Justin Jefferson because he's that guy. He's one of these commodities that no matter what, you know what you're going to get. He's going to have those 150 targets. He's going to have that high upside. He's going to give you 10-plus touchdowns. And then Courtney goes right behind me at 1-5, and she makes the easy decision too and takes Jamar Chase. Jorge at the 1-6, little wide receiver run, Tyreek Hill. And then Our bot at 1-7 takes Travis Kelce in a tight end premium. Drew, let's go ahead and ask the question. Is it too late?
No, I don't. I mean, I probably would have taken him after Chase, but you're splitting hairs at that point. Like I think the 1-6-1-7 is probably where he should go. So I don't have any issue with that. I think probably the only person that's mad here is Chris getting right before his pick, getting Kelce.
Yeah.
He probably had him queued up already, so he's probably the only one upset with that pick. Now that you guys can hear me again, while Chris ponders his pick, I would love to hear y'all's thoughts. I've been struggling a little bit with wide receiver 1 this year because I think that with TJ Hawkinson having another full year, a full offseason in this offense, they brought in Jordan Addison, as we know, who I think is an upgrade on Adam Thielen with where Adam Thielen was at this point in his career. Now, we know that Jamar Chase also has T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, but he doesn't have the tight end to deal with like TJ Hawkinson. Is there a case to be made for Jamar Chase as a wide receiver 1, or are we just going Justin Jefferson no matter what?
Dude, here's the way I look at this is as much as you want to add in TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison, you have to keep in mind that Jamar Chase is splitting the ball with T. Higgins and Joe Mixon. And even Irv Smith has some upside there. So if you want to talk about guys who are both of these guys have competition, but I think you have to bank on the talent. And both of those guys are just tremendous talents. So if we're going to go ahead and keep it moving, at the 1-8, Chris took A.J. Brown. Chris, talk about your guy.
Yeah, any guy with the nickname Swole Batman, I'm gonna move up in my rankings there. But I like what he did last year, high touchdown rate, a lot of yards for AJ, his real breakout year in terms of fantasy production. So I don't see anything changing in that offense for the Eagles. So I'm going to take AJ Brown there. I was hoping that the wide receivers would go a little earlier with the 1-8 and it would push back the running backs. And I was going to build through the running back position, but 3 running backs, top 3 picks. I have a luxury pick here with AJ Brown.
Yeah, and Jamie in the comments talks about how often does a rookie running back reach the top 10. He's referring to pick 9 being Bijan Robinson, which is just people love him. You know, it's hard to know exactly what it's going to be, but everybody pretty much assumes that he's going to be an RB1 this year. Whether he is a top 12 pick in a tight end premium draft, we're not so sure about. But to round out this first round, we had Devontae Adams at the 10th overall pick. Cooper Kupp, Drew gets his guy at 11th, and then Stephon Diggs to 12th. Drew, you have to be thrilled to get your man at the 111, huh?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I've got to me, there's a big 3 at wide receiver with Jefferson, Chase, and Cooper Kupp. They're my tier 1 receivers. And so if I can get him at the, what was he, the wide receiver 6, I think at the point that I got him, I'm thrilled there. I mean, I don't know what there's not to love with Kupp. He was on pace to shatter the records that he put up the year prior last year before he got hurt. The offensive line's gotten better. The Rams defense has gotten worse. So hopefully more shootouts. And the only target competition, quote unquote, was, you know, the day 3 pick with Puka Nacua, who I do like, but it's not a threat to Cooper Kupp. So I mean, a decent to good offense and a bad defense just sounds like a fantasy, fantasy matchup in heaven for me. So yeah, I love getting Kupp there.
Yeah, and Jamie said he's correcting me, saying he meant Jonathan Taylor going 3rd overall with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. And I would say to that, I mean, you have to bank on a guy getting that much volume with a rookie quarterback. So yeah, it might feel a little bit high for Jonathan Taylor, but you also have to realize he's going to get quite a bit of volume there. So to recap that first round, Stephon Diggs went 12th. Jumping into the second round, we were talking about this before the show. The first pick of the second round, Nate, you mentioned you might have in dynasty formats, people might bump down Derrick Henry. So this has to feel like a good spot for him, the top pick of the second round, huh?
You're muted, Nate.
Muted.
Come on, Drew.
You're muted.
So I didn't have my screen on. I was looking at the other my actual draft picks. But what I was saying is that, yeah, and we were talking earlier about how many dynasty startups we have a tendency to do mocks now. And so when you take that pivot into a redraft, I look at a lot. My mindset is that I see and think about Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon dropping down the board enough that it makes me want to go wide receiver heavy early. And yet, you notice I didn't when I went with CMC, simply because I know that you guys are savvy enough to move those longer in the tooth, which sucks to say because these guys are late 20s at this point, but you get the idea. You know what I'm saying? But I have one question for you guys too, in response to what Jamie said about Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. As I'm on the clock, Trey Lance isn't exactly a seasoned veteran. Do you put McCaffrey in the same conundrum as a rookie quarterback as you would with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson?
Well, I'm going to say this when it comes to Christian McCaffrey. Until he proves otherwise, he's the man in that offense. You know, you can look at Deebo Samuel, huge talent. Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, all very good players. But with Trey Lance essentially being, and even Brock Purdy essentially being a rookie quarterback with so few starts, you have to bank on McCaffrey, in my opinion, being just a surefire guy. Still, even at his age, as he starts to come toward that line where people are starting to say he might be a little bit long in the tooth. So as we kept moving in the 2-2, we had Saquon Barkley, then another wide receiver run, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jalen Waddle. Chris, let's fold you in. We've had 10 wide receivers go in these first 17 picks. You know, do you expect that to hold true once the season starts and we still have this many, or are some running backs going to rise up in your opinion?
Yeah, in a 1 QB league, I could see the wide receivers going pretty heavily in drafts, all depending, of course, on your scoring format. So make sure that before you draft, you're studying, especially if you're playing any kind of IDP, that you're studying your scoring in terms of who to select and when in your drafts. I don't see it changing much. I don't see, maybe you can move Jacobs or Najee Harris above some of the wide receivers, but I think it'll stand pat. I think it'll be a pretty heavy wide receiver rotation come August.
Right. And so at the 2-6, we had our first quarterback go off of the board. A little bit of a surprise in Josh Allen going in that slot. So Jorge, would that be what you have done? Who is your quarterback one in a one quarterback format? And go ahead and tell me why.
You know, I get the Josh Allen talk. I get it because he can scramble. He's basically a de facto running back. But I'm rolling with Nate here. Patrick Mahomes is just, you know what sold me on Patrick Mahomes being the quarterback one in fantasy for the near future is we talked about it heading into last season. Oh, you take away Tyreek Hill, you're taking away a huge playmaker. Whatever is he going to do? Is he going to maintain fantasy relevance in terms of being one of the elite quarterbacks? Yes, he did. He is literally one of the top quarterbacks in all of fantasy, and he did that with basically a hodgepodge at receiver and Travis Kelce. This guy, is the epitome of making chicken salad out of what. So, you add some depth at the wide receiver in terms of rookie picks this year. You have developments of wide receiver of Sky Moore. You bring back Jerick McKinney. You bring back all these tools from this past season that he was able to utilize to make him a top quarterback in fantasy. Josh Allen, at the end of the day, come fantasy playoff time, are you trusting Josh Allen to deliver a W? Has he proven that he's Mr. Clutch? I don't know. I know Patrick Mahomes has, therefore I'm rolling with Mahomes.
Look, if there's somebody who is undeniable in the fantasy space at this point, or just the NFL in general, it is Pat Mahomes. You're right about that. So as we keep rolling at the 2-7, Devontae Smith, 2-8, Josh Jacobs, your guy and my guy, the 2-9, I took Pat Mahomes. I'm standing firm with that. I'm gonna take that all day if it gets to be down there. Najee Harris at the 2-10. Sorry, Gator, he is not one of my guys, but people like him. He's gonna have the volume, so let's roll with him. Higgins at 2-11 with our bot. 2-12, Mark Andrews. You took that second tight end off the board. I've heard a lot of people talk about Mark Andrews being, that guy. If you don't want to go so high for Kelce and a tight end premium, you're going to take Mark Andrews. So, Nate, the floor is yours. Make the case for why Mark Andrews might be a better value than Travis Kelce at this point in the draft.
I mean, I don't ever want to talk bad about Kelce as far as where and why and how he could be a better value pick. But I think it always seems to resonate better when I say put together Kelce, and in this case, it's a bot, so they started off with the quarterback a little probably earlier than I like in a one quarterback league. But regardless, you go Kelce and a running back there, whoever that would be. Let's say it's Josh Jacobs would have been the most applicable, at least the closest. You go Kelce, Josh Jacobs, Mark Andrews, Christian McCaffrey, and I'm choosing the McCaffrey Andrews side just simply because I think Andrews and Kelce are closer than that proverbial 2-tier drop from McCaffrey to Josh Jacobs. And that's no disrespect to Josh Jacobs. Hell, he led the league in rushing last year. This isn't an indoctrination against him, but I think the pure upside and the ceiling play is there. And let's be honest, T. Higgins was supposed to be my pick there. It was going to be Higgins and Andrews, and then stupid bot took it. But, I felt good with – we're going to see how this works out. This wide receiver conversation, I'm intrigued to see how bad my team's going to look wide receiver-wise. And that's what's good about mocks is because I love the running back game right now. Chubb and McCaffrey is better than I could have expected. But wish me luck, fellas.
Yes, indeed. So moving into the third round, couple of running backs off the board, Chubb and Dalvin Cook. And then in that third pick of the third round, our producer extraordinaire, Gator J, rolls with Jalen Hurts. Chris, let's ask the question. Jalen Hurts has to be a strong consideration for QB1 this year, and getting him at the top of the third round has to be awesome at this point, right?
Yeah, he's definitely going to have the opportunity to be that QB1 if he can up his passing yardage. Yeah, there'll be a good chance for him to do it. He's got to up his passing yardage, up his passing touchdowns. He's going to have to be an elite rusher like we've seen him in the past. That cheating QB push that they use in Philadelphia, getting him those cheap rushing touchdowns are always going to help. So as the QB3 in that spot, I don't hate it. That's where I got him ranked. Overall in terms of QB rankings, what you can find at the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel. Gator J put together some elite videos for the three of us, myself, Drew, and Rhett on there with our QB rankings from our previous show. So make sure you go check that out. But yeah, I don't hate it there. It's a good pick. I'm going to go here. I got to pick. My time is running up. I got 46 seconds. I'm going to go another wide receiver, one that's tied to one of your boys, yourselves, and Drew's, Geno Smith. I'm going to roll DK Metcalf here to finish my quadruplet of fantasy studs.
Wide receiver heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
My man is going 0 RB. So at that fourth pick, I went with Breece Hall. Guys, I know they're saying there's questions about week one, but this guy has league-winning upside. If you can stay the course and he turns out being who we think he is, then I love doing that in the middle of the third round. Fifth pick, Joe Burrow. Sixth pick, Jorge goes with George Kittle. No shocks there. The bot goes with Travis Etienne at the seventh pick. There was some news that came out about Jacksonville maybe being more of a committee this year. Nate, is this going to affect Travis Etienne's draft stock long term?
I mean, I think that you'd rather have that super heavy workload, but I think that his value is really tied with the ability to do both. Catching passes out of the backfield. He never was designed to be in between the tackles runner, I don't think. So does it hurt a little bit? I'm still not as beat up about that. I'm still comfortable with ETN as my one, and if that spot where he went.
Right. 3-8 Garrett Wilson, the ninth pick of the third round, maybe lower than some people expect. Tony Pollard, which is an interesting spot for him. 10 Ken Walker. 11th pick, Ramondre Stevenson. And at the 12th, to round out the third round, we had Deebo Samuel. So moving into the fourth round, we had Joe Mixon, TJ Hawkinson, Keenan Allen, and Chris Olave, which we'll go ahead and get back to. But because I have to make this pick right now, And let's see who is on the clock here. Okay, let's just go ahead and let's take Jorge's guy right here.
Scary.
I know. That's a good pick. Biased.
So, Chris, sell me on Chris Olave in that fourth pick right there in the fourth round.
Yeah, it's good value in terms of where they got him as wide receiver 4 or 5. I think it's 14. Wide receiver 14. So he's getting an upgrade in quarterback, which is always good. They got a cake schedule, the New Orleans Saints do. They face the Falcons twice, of course, the Bucs twice. The Bucs look like they're trying to lose. When you see the videos coming out from Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield just completely missing their targets. So that's going to be good in terms of fantasy production for the wide receivers for the New Orleans Saints. And there's no one else really there. Mike Thomas is going to start the season, but who knows if he's going to finish. So I was going to go Chris Olave if he was there, but I got sniped pretty hard, so I'm happy with DK Metcalf. But I like the value there with Chris Olave in the fourth.
Yeah. And then fifth pick, Aaron Jones. Then we go to Justin Herbert. Michael Pittman in the eighth pick of the fourth round is an interesting spot considering the running back situation, the quarterback situation over there, excuse me. So do we think with a rookie quarterback in all likelihood starting, Nate, is this going to affect Michael Pittman? Is he too high at this point?
I love Michael Pittman. I don't want to ever say negative about him, but I worry anytime you have the same adage we talked about affecting the running back position, it definitely affects the receiver position. But I think where he's going, I think is baked in to his ADP. You know, that last year, if we had a competent quarterback, or this year with competent quarterback, I think we would see him mixed into that grouping of the Garrett Wilson, Deebo Samuel 6-7 picks before. So yeah, I mean, I think we all want the upside, but if you look at the next list of names, and everybody's got warts. I mean, I'm trying to decipher which ones I want right now, and they're all woof. It's 2:00 at the bar, and I'm picking out some others right now. All right, pretty lady, which one wants to see? You got some teeth. So we'll go with you. And got all your appendages. So we'll go with Amari Cooper. So
You took the Twins home.
Yes, the Twins. Oh gosh.
Yeah, he double taps the receivers with Chris Godwin and Amari Cooper. Second pick of the fifth round, we are looking at DeAndre Swift. Chris, let's ask the question, what exactly can we expect out of DeAndre Swift this season in Philadelphia?
To me right now, it's a little unknown based on what his role is going to be in that offense, but they did trade for him. They brought him in. They're going to utilize him they're going to utilize his strengths, which is pass catching. So hopefully he kind of takes that little bit of Kenny Gainwell role for the Philadelphia offense and helps out Jalen Hurts as the quarterback there. So Hurts doesn't have to run the ball as much. He can be that outlet guy for you beneath the 10, right before the stick. So I'm expecting a decent season, maybe a back end RB2 with the hopes that he can move up to be that mid to top end RB2 for fantasy managers.
Right. And as we all know, if you go look at the YouTube channels, before he got traded, I did a dynasty player profile on DeAndre Swift, gave you a reason as to why I believe that guy is a stud and still can be a stud even with a new destination. So with the third pick of the fifth round, Gator J took Jerry Jeudy, which puts me on the clock with the fourth pick, and I'm going to play YOLO ball. We talked tight ends a couple weeks ago. I had this guy as my tight end 3, and I'm getting gangster with it, baby. Let's go with Darren Waller, and I'm open for any questions as to why.
Does the injury history concern you at all? Does the passing volume in this Giants offense, does that concern you at all here with Waller?
Injuries, perhaps, but like I said, in terms of the passing volume, Jorge, a couple weeks back, the Giants did not trade for him to be a support player. I believe they want him to be their Travis Kelce. So a healthy Darren Waller in this situation is probably looking at 130 targets minimum, and it's going to act as the de facto wide receiver 1 for that team. So I'm all in on that guy. I believe he has a chance to be the tight end 1 by the end of the season. As a matter of fact, I don't believe Travis Kelce is going to relinquish that spot. But if there was someone who was going to have the potential resume to do so, I think Waller has a very strong case for that.
I wish I had the audio drop. That's a bold move, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off. But that's,
look, I looked back on that guy, and I just loved the stat outlays from years past. Even last year when he played 9 games, he still had solid numbers and was on pace for a solid season. So moving into the middle of this 5th round, we have a running back run here with James Conner, Dameon Pierce, and Javonte Williams. Jorge, Javonte Williams, we don't know what it's going to be. Is the 5th round too high for that guy at this point?
See, it's picks like this that make me less concerned that artificial intelligence is going to take over the world. I would not have selected Javonte Williams in the 5th round, 6th round. It would have to be pretty late. In fact, I would probably not draft Javonte Williams at all. I know there's talk out of Broncos camp that, he should be ready for week 1. He should be this. He should be that. Yet you listen to every medical professional out there in the fantasy space. Well, he didn't just blow out one ligament. He blew out a bunch of stuff, and he has a real multifactorial injury he's coming back from. You look at when that happened during the season. There have been comps to Saquon Barkley. He did come back the following year after tearing his ACL, but he wasn't really right until now this past year. So what exactly are you expecting from Javonte Williams? I'm not expecting much. Therefore, I'm definitely not drafting him in the 5th round.
And if you're listening and playing Fantasy and Frames Bingo, multifactorial is a box checked. Congratulations, Jorge. Thank you so much for the multifactorial. Back to you, Rhett.
Damn it, Hoosier. Oh,
did I get you, Drew?
I'm irritated, man. And I wanted to have a change in philosophy this year because typically I'm the late round quarterback guy in a 1 quarterback league. I'm like I might let teams draft their 2nd quarterback, even though you don't even need a 2nd quarterback before I draft my 1st one. But then I'm like, I want these elite quarterbacks, these game changers. I want to roster one. And I'm sitting here. There's 2 quarterbacks that are left in my tier 2 of Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields, my quarterback 4, my quarterback 5. They're both on the board still, right here in the 5th round. So I'm getting one of them for sure. One of these guys is about to get drafted by me, and then you and DC Hoosier Girl just absolutely just took a gigantic shit on all of my plans. So now I'm in complete shambles. I'm down bad. I was already mad because I'm sitting here. I drafted TJ Hawkinson in the 4th round, and I'm not even sure if that was the right choice because I was really contemplating Kyle Pitts. But TJ Hawkinson's higher in my rankings. They're in the same tier, but I love Kyle Pitts so much, and I regret passing on him for Hawkinson. Maybe I need to flip-flop those guys. Now I'm mad that I don't have one of Lamar or Justin Fields, and I'm so upset here, man. So I'm going to take what I think is going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. I think that it's been a while since we've seen this guy play football. So it's fair, but I think we forgot how great this dude is. And if you're betting on Trevor Lawrence taking that next step and being a guy that is, being drafted heavily right now, even in 1 quarterback leagues, I'm Gator. This is real life for me, man. This is a mock or no mock, man. So I'm taking Calvin Ridley here. I think that. I think he's being slept on a little bit. I even saw something about are we sure that he's better than Christian Kirk on Twitter today? Me personally, I'm positive that he is a better player than Christian Kirk. That's just me personally. So I'll grab him there. Now that the quarterbacks I wanted are off the board at this point, I'm really just fading the quarterback position. I'm going to go back to my late quarterback mold, and I'm just going to wait it out. And I'm going to take a running back that I think is in for a huge – we were just talking about Javonte Williams and kind of the path for him coming back to health. And if you remember this time last year, J.K. Dobbins, there was all the positive reports that he's ready for camp. And, and he's participating and things like that. Even though it was just basic drills, he's participating. The injuries that Javonte and J.K. Dobbins are dealing with are pretty similar. And we didn't really see J.K. Dobbins come back to life until later on, like, the second half of the season. And I think now they didn't really bring any competition in at the running back room. I think that J.K. Dobbins is in for a big year. Todd Monken has a past, the new Ravens offensive coordinator. He has a past of using workhorse backs. And I think, even though I love Gus the Bus, I'm a huge Gus Edwards fan, but I think that if there's going to be a guy that handles 67% of the touches, I think it's going to be J.K. Dobbins. And so I'm betting on him as a high-end RB2 this season, and so I'll take him here. I saw the question about, hey, if I believe in Calvin Ridley, why not take T-Law? That's a fair conversation. But for me, if I'm taking a quarterback in a one quarterback league, I want him to have that high rushing upside similar to Lamar and Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, even though I think he's a great quarterback for real life NFL purposes. For fantasy purposes, in a one quarterback league, I'm willing to wait a little bit once Lamar and Fields come off the board. Whereas if this was super flex, it'd be a lot different, obviously. But one quarterback league, once those high rushing upside guys are gone, I'm going to wait a little while.
Yeah, sounds good. Great argument. Nate, let's ask the question. 2 years off, does that Calvin Ridley 2-year layoff affect you?
I mean, I think it definitely has to affect you a little bit in terms of your confidence level of him immediately jumping in. And maybe that's why, in this situation for where Drew got him at the tail end of this 5th round, it's not a bad investment to make, because I do expect it to be a little bit of a learning curve. But the nice thing is that we haven't had this in quite some time. Remember, the last couple of years, these have been abbreviated spring trainings, if you want to call them. I'm in baseball mode. Sorry, I apologize. But, they're abbreviated OTAs and everything else. Ridley's probably on the benefit of actually getting a full go and having that acclimation. I think that by season's end, which is the most important weeks of the season when it comes to fantasy, that's when that true relationship between Ridley and T-Law will really start to pay dividends. And if Drew has a healthy Cooper Kupp all year, Ridley is a 2. I do think he's the best receiver on that team. I think Christian Kirk probably leads the team in targets, maybe for the full season, but I get the feeling Ridley is going to have the higher ceiling games.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, Christian Kirk had a great season. There's also Zay Jones. There are a lot of guys, but we can all agree that none of those guys at their best were ever Calvin Ridley at his best. So he is, if nothing else, a very interesting flyer coming into this 2023 season. So as we moved into that 6th round, we had Alvin Kamara, the bot, ruining everything to start off the 6th round. Mm-hmm. His J.K. Dobbins pick for Drew, Cam Akers at the 6'3", Goddard at the 6'4". We're going to come back to this, but interesting with Jahmyr Gibbs in the 5th pick, Big Mike Williams in the 6th, Miles Sanders, Rachaad White, and they put me here at the 9th pick of the 6th round. I have to take this guy. We know the upside. We saw the upside with him last year. We heard Chris wax poetic about him last week using nothing but rapper references. So you have to take Drake London right here. I just love the player. I love the physicality. I love the upside. I love the fact that even if it is with Kyle Pitts, I just love this player, and I think he's in for big things this year.
Agreed. I like Drake London. He was I was looking at for the next turn for me, and Tyler Lockett was the other one. So, well, back to the old drawing board. We're perusing the bar again. It's
But Nate, while you cruise the bar and look for your picks, I want to, because Rhett, you brought up an interesting point. So Jahmyr Gibbs goes at the 6'5", Bijan Robinson goes at the 109, and there's not near as much of a gap in the actual NFL draft this year between Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. And me personally, I was literally just this afternoon, I was looking at my redraft rankings. I've got Bijan at running back 4, and I've got Jahmyr Gibbs at running back 18. And I feel like that might be too big of a gap considering the investment that both teams made in terms of draft capital this year. But, one person doesn't have to deal with David Montgomery while Jahmyr Gibbs does. Are we too low on Jahmyr Gibbs in his rookie year?
For me, I look at Jahmyr Gibbs this way. He is walking into with Jared Goff and no real tight end in that offense outside of Sam Laporta, who is yet to be established. There is a 60 reception floor for Jahmyr Gibbs in year one, in my opinion. So for me, you look at a guy like that, if you have any guy who's going to catch 60 balls out of the backfield, they almost immediately go into running back 2 consideration. So in the mid-6th round for a guy like that, I think you make that pick all day.
Yeah. Jared Goff is check down central, and I'm sitting here thinking out loud, kind of that I think I'm too low on Jahmyr Gibbs. I think I'm gonna have to move him up in my redraft rankings. I love him in Dynasty. I think he's my running back 4 in Dynasty, but even redraft, I think I'm gonna have to move him up a little bit.
And I think it would be fun to do so just to see what would happen across those picks right here. So as Nate has said, it is perusing time as I look through it is now my 2 a.m. here in round 7. Not a lot of attractive options. So once again, at this point in the draft, you have to go with there's upside. And if there's upside, there is a flex possibility. I could take a running back here, and you could look at an Isaiah Pacheco or an A.J. Dillon. None of those people really scream that much to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and take one of my guys in this situation and play pure upside. I think George Pickens has 1,000-yard upside this year. We saw it last year where he had 850 yards on something like 40 catches. He was insane last year. He was a boomer bust player. I get that, but this is year 2. He has a year under his belt. He knows the league a little bit better. He was coming off of an injury last year as well. So we have a chance to see a fully healthy potential alpha unicorn in George Pickens. So at this point in the draft, like we said, you need those studs that are going to lock you in and give you those points, but you also need those upside guys who are going to give you those huge weeks to help put you over the top. And I think George Pickens is one of those guys. So before then, Tyler Lockett was at the 10th pick of the 6th. Trevor Lawrence, who 11th pick. Christian Watson to close out the 6th round. Then going into the 7th, Arizona Cardinal loud and proud, Marquise Brown. Walk us through that pick with the quarterback situation we talked about earlier. Nate, why are we taking Hollywood at this point? Is it just a value thing or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. You look at, like I said, last year, granted, different situation if we're starting off with the potential question marks around Kyler Murray, but he was a target hog. And that's pretty much for my flex number 2 spot. You give me a person who in over a stretch of 6 games can be 4th in the entire NFL in targets. And it's been done. And I'm not saying once you do something, you hold those traits if you want to, but I don't think that there's much. I mean, there's regression from him being number 4 in targets. I'm not trying to say he's going to be, top 5, but I'm more than happy to get safe every week. And yeah, get it if you want to trade up. Looking back, that is, is that one of the things that when you guys do a lot of Dynasty and you do a lot of these things, not having the ability to trade and redraft, do you get envious of those other drafts, or is that just where like I'm so used to the redraft leagues where I don't trade? That's not even in my vocabulary or in my thought process.
Yeah, I try not to trade too much in Dynasty startups unless I see that there's a teardrop coming and I want to move up and grab someone that maybe shouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. But I like to just sit in my slot, pick what I got to pick. I don't like to move too much young capital at the startup. Again, unless there is that player there that is just waiting to be picked, someone that maybe got pushed down the board. But as I make my pick here, while you guys are perusing with your beer goggles on, I've only had waters, so I'm going to go home with the belle of the ball, and I'm going to take Jahan Dotson from the Washington Commanders. I've loved what I've been seeing so far coming out of OTAs with Sam Howell. I've watched a lot of Sam Howell in his North Carolina days. I love his arm. He's got the talent to throw the ball downfield, and Jahan Dotson is going to be the guy for the Commanders to stretch that field.
And look, Chris, I'm gonna ask you the question, Chris, because I took a Commanders receiver earlier.
Yep.
and Terry McLaurin. So
Mhm.
now we're brothers in this. Should we be
Eskimo
concerned,
brothers.
or should we take some value in Sam Howell and think there might be more to that than meets the eye?
We'll take the value with Sam Howell. I liked what he did at North Carolina. Like I mentioned, he's made wide receivers like Josh Downs he's played with, Diami Brown he's played with. He's a guy that can put the ball down the field. Terry McLaurin's going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Washington Commanders. Jahan Dotson's going to be that wide receiver 1B. So the fact that I can get him there as my wide receiver 5, sit him in the flex spot, I don't hate it. Tied to Lamar Jackson and Jahmyr Gibbs, my 2 running backs. I like the value that I got there.
Yeah, so
don't do Lamar like that, man.
So we completed.
Hey, Rhett, can I ask a question to the panel real quick? Speaking of Lamar Jackson,
Love it.
all right. So I've got a puff piece coming out on my pick here in Rashad Bateman. I consider him a buy both in Dynasty and Redraft based on the way his ADP has been cut down due to OBJ signing and the Zay Flowers draft pick. Me personally, I prefer Rashad Bateman as the wide receiver 1 in this draft or on this team. I still think he's the number 2 target behind Mark Andrews, but I prefer him over Zay Flowers. I prefer him over OBJ, but yet I've been seeing him go as the possible 3rd option in this offense. Am I crazy for liking Rashad Bateman more than Zay Flowers?
Not more
Crazy?
than Zay Flowers. Go ahead. I want to hear your opinion.
Crazy? I don't think so, because I think Rashad Bateman has that sort of talent. He has the size. He had the receiving profile in college, but he also has the injury history in the NFL where he hasn't fully established himself yet. So, Nate, what did you want to say about that possibility as well?
I mean, I think obviously, like I said, with a lot of these players in terms of the baked into their ADP, just worry about a potential threshold for target share with any of them. I mean, I think that the weapons, and granted, it's going to be a more high octane offense. I think we know that with Monken, and I think that they're going to want to play no huddle or at a more likely clip. Some of the picks have got me really pissed off right now, and I mean, not good when you're tilting in round 8 with like that. But
it's all good.
But I guess if you're going to invest in one now, if you had multiple, that's the one thing about the Ravens offense. I don't think that's a team. You have to just kind of pick your one pocket and stay with it, because I don't think you can really. If you take Lamar, stacking them, if that's a thing in redraft with the receiver, only person would be Mark Andrews. Outside of that, I think you're just taking one shot a piece and hoping those given weeks, because I don't know if it's going to be consistently Rashad Bateman. I can see weeks where it's Andrews, OBJ, but Flowers, Lamar, OBJ, all 3 of those, there's a familiarity and a learning curve they have to get used to. New offense for Lamar, knew that. It's such a crazy hard offense to figure out. And I find that with a few of the offenses so far in the NFL, like the Chiefs are another one where, you don't know which receiver that you want to go for any one at any given week outside of the tight end, which is Mark Andrews to Travis Kelce. And then the Baltimore receivers are better than KC. But speaking of, there goes Kadarius Toney. Fudge. Sorry, okay. My bad. Sorry.
So we got to run through this 7th round and recap it real quick. Hollywood went with that first pick. Then David Montgomery with our bot. Brandon Cooks, interesting in the 3rd pick of that 7th round. Pickens, Treylon Burks, Deontay Johnson coming off of a 0 touchdown season. I would love to hear Jorge's take on that if we have time. Pacheco in that 7th pick. Jahan Dotson, Christian Kirk, Dak Prescott, Brandon Ayuk, and A.J. Dillon rounds out that 7th round. So were there any interesting pieces in that 7th round that you really looked at Jorge and thought, I wouldn't maybe take that guy there?
I wouldn't take that guy there.
Stretch, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I guess Burks, I understand he is the only wide receiver target there. I would have rather gone with somebody who would have a little bit more consistent passing volume, like my player that I took in that next round, Jordan Addison. But like Jahan Dotson, Kirks, Ayuk, I feel there's more upside there than I feel with Traylon Burks. We kind of know what the Tennessee Titans offense is. It's Derrick Henry. It's Ryan Tannehill. Wow, I can't even say that.
Nate.
Nate's sniping people left and right. So I guess it for me would be Burks there.
Yeah, we got people
angry about that.
Yeah, we got people left and right that are just off the rails.
I'll say this right now. I think that Antonio Gibson is such a great value there, and I think that he is one of the most underrated and underutilized running backs in the league. And it just even today, I saw a report that came out that said something about how his receiving chops were shining in camp, and it just annoys the piss out of me because he was practically a receiver in college. And then they drafted him at running back and tried to turn him into a 2-down running back whenever he was a receiver in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And now, because they had J.D. McKissick, and now there's no J.D. McKissick, and there's like, oh, hey, this guy that was practically a receiver in college, turns out he's pretty good at catching the ball in the NFL as well. And it's just like they could have been doing this in the first place. I think that Antonio Gibson is so underrated, and I had him in my queue. He was going to be an auto draft at my next pick, and so I really don't like Nate right now at all.
Well, good, appreciate that. I think that when you have nearly 60 targets and a second year of getting acclimated within, and I saw that pick, right before Brian Robinson went, and I don't have a problem with Robinson going right there. I think that is this offense capable of supporting 5 fantasy pieces, 4 we'll say realistically. I think there's a potential for that. The offense is definitely built around a more pass friendly situation, I think, with what the pieces they brought in coaching wise, and they've got playmakers. And I mean, I think that that's a recipe for potential success. Look at here.
Chris, pick your poison between those two running backs, Brian Robinson or Antonio Gibson. Who are you going with?
I'm going to go with the pass catching guy. Always, I'm going to go Antonio Gibson. He's going to be on the field. If they run any checks, it's going to go to Antonio Gibson. He's fast. He's got the speed. We've seen him move. So, in that backfield, I'm going to go with the guy that didn't get shot in the knee.
It was the ass. He got shot in the ass and the glutes area.
In the glutes.
As my man Forrest Gump would say, he got shot in the buttocks.
50 Cent got shot 9 times, and he just walked with a limp. So it's all right. It's all right. I'm getting sniped on these late round running backs pretty bad. I had Rashad Penny queued up too, and then Jorge just grabbed him. I think that there was a really interesting note that I saw a week or so ago about how the lack of passing down usage to the running back position that the Eagles had, thinking about, so that would be the DeAndre Swift role, right? Whereas the running back role for carries and goal line work would go to Rashad Penny, assumingly. I like Penny quite a bit, so that was unfortunate that I got sniped there.
You're welcome.
Yeah. People are just left and right just getting depressed all through this draft. But let's go ahead and quickly run through this 8th round where James Cook went with that first pick, followed by Rashad Bateman. Bots ruining things again with Zeke Elliott in that 3rd pick. Alex Madison, Evan Ingram, Juju Smith-Schuster, Jorge's guy Jordan Addison, Kadarius Toney, who has a serious wide receiver 1 possibility. We had the Brian Robinson versus Antonio Gibson debate. They went 8-9 and 8-12. And then between there, a Buffalo run with Dalton Kincaid and Gabe Davis. Into that 9th round, I have to ask the question. First pick, Nate, Devin A-Chain. I know he went high in rookie drafts in Dynasty. Why is he going this high in redraft?
Yeah, at the point where the running backs were left, and I feel that that's the area to address because for my specific team format, I could use another one. When I look at everybody, I see split duty and on lower volume offenses. And I know with Miami, the offense itself should be high power, and there's an opportunity for him to achieve some ceiling plays. I'm not the biggest A-Chain fan, and then even more so because today in one of the chats that I'm in, there's a particular individual whose friend is involved with the Minnesota Vikings, and there was talk that Dalvin Cook and the Miami Dolphins are potentially nearing an agreement, and that's something that they're considering. If that's the case, you think, Nate, hey, you just said that you may have some type of information. Why'd you do it? Well, it's a mock, so I don't really care as much, even though I do care. Don't let you guys fool it. I'm taking this very seriously. In a real draft, with that knowledge, I would probably have avoided. But, man, this is where I think you kind of got to, you got to shoot for the moon a little bit sometimes. These safe picks are nice, but HN has that ability and the team dynamic to deliver, that RB2 upside with him carving out a role. Because, I mean, the other backs in Miami aren't exactly the ideal health candidates, so there's a good chance that with health comes opportunity.
Right. And I could completely agree with you on that. And as we keep moving, Drew, I wanted to ask you a question about these late round tight ends. We've had a few of them go off in the past couple rounds. Guys like Dalton Kincaid, Dalton Schultz, Greg Dulcich, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Pratt Freiermuth. Which of these guys, especially in a tight end premium format, is there a late round tight end that you're banking on to maybe fire off and have a big year and return some value in this sort of format?
So I like Njoku a lot. I like Chig a lot. And I don't mind Freiermuth. Once we get to these tight ends later on, I'm looking for guys that have the best possibility to be, at a minimum, the second target in their offense. And I think whenever you look at Cleveland, once you get past Amari Cooper, the possibility of David Njoku being the second option is realistic. Whenever you look at Chig, once you get past Treylon Burks, the possibility of him being the second option in that offense is realistic. Now, once you look at Freiermuth, you're talking about Deontay Johnson, who I think might be the most underrated receiver in the league. You're talking about George Pickens. I think that Freiermuth might be a little bit down in the target pecking order there. And then Dalton Kincaid, I think that I would be nervous drafting him in redraft leagues just because of the history of tight ends not named Kyle Pitts producing in their rookie season. It's just not in our favor from a fantasy standpoint. So, I mean, at this, as late as he got drafted in this league, it's not an awful dart throw, especially in a tight end premium. And in the team he got drafted on, Kyle Pitts is the tight end one. So it's really a luxury pick at that point. So I don't really hate that. Now, if you're depending on Dalton Kincaid as your tight end one, that's a whole different story. But in this instance, the Gator J, the team that picked him here, that's not your tight end one. So I don't really hate that as much as somebody that might be not having them as a tight end. But once you get into these later rounds, I'm just looking for guys that could possibly be target hogs in their offense.
Right. And so we are sitting here right now. I'm at the 9th pick in this 10th round. And this one, it gets tough, doesn't it, boys? I mean, so we have to go maybe even eeny, meeny, miny, mo. We could have a little bit of fun, or we can just go with somebody who is going to be as safe as possible, or a guy that I really love as an upside play. That offense is going to get some upgrades this year. So at this point, I like Darnell Mooney, but let's go ahead and recap this last round or so that we've had with Dalton Schultz at the 9-2, followed by Adam Thielen, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Greg Dulcich, Rashad Penny, Michael Thomas, Quentin Johnston, Samaje Perine at the ninth pick in the 9th round, who is interesting in Denver this year with the Javonte Williams situation we talked about earlier. Cortland Sutton, Khalil Herbert, and Kyler Murray rounding out that 9th round. Njoku at the top of the 10th. Damian Harris with the 2nd pick. Pat Freiermuth, Zay Flowers, Jamal Williams, Deshaun Watson, Tank Bigsby, Jonathan Mingo, Darnell Mooney, Jamison Williams, Tua Tagovailoa, and Kirk Cousins rounding out that 10th round. Then moving into the 11th, Anthony Richardson. Nate, you're just going to have to talk me through that one. I get the talent, but I also know this is a guy who barely completed 50% of passes in college. What is, I guess the play is pure upside with Anthony Richardson, isn't it?
Mute.
Still muted.
Maybe I don't want you to hear what I'm saying. Maybe I have maybe I'm not trying to let you guys hear my rationale so people don't know what I'm going to do so I can win my leagues, Jorge. You ever think of that? Don't let your secrets out. That's how I won that belt back
All
then.
right,
You did.
all right. I get it.
I know. See, you asked to come on. You got me all fired up. Me screwing up being on mute. No, I get that. And that right there, and I realize it's not the deepest drafts that we're doing, but that's a pretty common little approach that I'll take too. Sometimes if as I've said, as I'm kicking the can of quarterback down the road, I'll take the safe play, Kirk Cousins every week. We know, not every week. You get the idea. At the end of the season, he's going to be a QB1. It might be 11 or 12, but the weapons are too great for him not just to succeed. Anthony Richardson's upside is legitimate. I mean, he's a game breaker, potentially. The size, the speed, the arm is not exactly my ideal cup of tea, but it's the legs, man. And I mean, when's the last time, and I don't have the stat in front of me, wish I did, I'd been more prepared, but the last time that a running quarterback has had over 10 rushing attempts a game or 8 rushing attempts a game is not finished outside of the QB1 landscape. I think it's one of that tied to. So the upside is there for Richardson. I get it. It's a little, maybe a little, I guess, optimistic, but I love it. I love that pairing of him and Cousins personally.
Yeah, so let me tip the cap real quick because this is exactly what I was looking to do on the flip side on my back-to-back picks here coming up. I think Nate played that perfectly. Where if you do go the late round quarterback strategy, if you compare a safe guy with a high upside guy, I think that is the best case scenario in a one quarterback league. If you go late round quarterback, Nate, job well done, man. You broke my heart, but can't do anything but tip the cap whenever you get sniped like that.
There's still plenty of people. You have Russell Wilson and Daniel Jones, Jared Goff. Those are some good names.
Don't give the people that might be listening this drafting with us any ideas. I need a quarterback now.
Oh, I wasn't on mute. My bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, go back on mute for me.
And while we're at it, let me just go ahead and say this. If that was disrespect toward Danny Dimes, we're in Danny Dimes country here in the Manuel household, and you're not going to do it.
No, sir. No, sir. My apologies. That is, I am a fan of Danny Dimes. He didn't work for that strategy for me necessarily because he's a little too volatile, I think, for me. Whereas Kyle, Kirky is a little more safe. But he's boring. I'll say this right now. I would rather probably have Daniel Jones gun to head as far as who I think has the potential to finish higher on the season. But I like safe.
Yeah, especially in a one quarterback format. Safe probably isn't the worst strategy because you need to get those points that you can bank on a weekly basis. Continuing through this 11th round, Tyler Algier, who was on Bijan Watch in that 11th round. Elijah Mitchell. I took Odell Beckham in that situation and realized at that point that I'm extremely wide receiver heavy, but I'm looking at ADPs and more than team construction at this point. So then you have with that 5th pick, Zach Charbonnet, who is sharing a backfield with Ken Walker, and they're similar players. So I understand the upside with him possibly. Kendre Miller in that 6th pick, and then Leonard Fournette. So you love Kendre Miller at the 11-6. Sell us on Kendre Miller in a redraft this year.
I mean, there's still the looming Alvin Kamara suspension, and if that does come into play, just from a talent standpoint, I think that Kendre Miller is a more talented running back than Jamal Williams. I know that he had the huge touchdown output in Detroit. I think that is more of an outlier rather than the norm, and I think that just Kendre Miller. I think that there is if Alvin Kamara is served a suspension, I think that there's a realistic chance where Kendre Miller could come out of camp as the 1A in that Saints offense. And you're grabbing that in the 11th round. I love that value. I think that's great there. And so I'm going to, now that Nate, I was hoping to get Anthony Richardson here. Now that Nate stole that from me, I'm going to do the Aldi's version, the discount version of what he just did, and I'm going to hopefully assuming that. How did you know?
Are we doing it?
Assuming that Team 12 lets me do it, we'll see. I'm going to take my guy. So the fact that I was able to get last year's QB5 here at like the QB whatever, and then they added Jackson Smith-Njigba, so like he was the QB5 last year without JSN. Insert JSN to this offense. I'll gladly have him as my QB1 in a 1-quarterback league. And then just to double tap it for a little bit of upside, I'm a humongous Trey Lance guy. If you've known me for anything longer than the last like 3 months, you know this. I mean, just his upside along with the Kyle Shanahan's play calling, the weapons that they have there in San Francisco. I don't buy the Sam Darnold shit. I don't think that Brock Purdy is very good. I think that Brock Purdy is a little bit more mobile Jimmy Garoppolo that is once again being uplifted by the system in place. And I don't see Trey Lance in that fashion. I think that he is a better overall player. So give me the upside with him. So I like a little bit more with what Nate did around earlier. If I could flip flop this and have Kirk Cousins and Anthony Richardson, I'd be a little bit more happier. But this is the great value version of what Nate did just around before this.
Dollar Tree Anthony Richardson. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, keeping it moving. We had Leonard Fournette. These bots are ruining everything at that 7th pick. Devin Singletary, Sky Moore, Michael Mayer. You mentioned Geno Smith, and then Aaron Rodgers rounds out that 11th round, which isn't terrible value at that point. 12th round, they followed up Dawson Knox. You went Trey Lance, Alan Lazard, the guy who I was hoping was going to fall at the end of the 12th, and Jerick McKinnon because he won a lot of leagues last year, and I just love his game.
Mm-hmm.
Jerome Ford with that 5th pick. I know there's some hype coming around with this guy. Chris, give us the Jerome Ford manifesto.
Yeah, just based on my build, picking running backs late, I'm going to try to take a guy that could fit into that Kareem Hunt role or hope that he can fit into that Kareem Hunt role for the Cleveland Browns, and I'm going to pick Jerome Ford. If he does take on that role, if anything was to happen to Nick Chubb, based on my 4 wide receivers in the first 4 rounds, the quarterback, then Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm going to try to snag other people's handcuffs here and try to get ahead of the game so I don't have to play as hard on waivers. So with Jamal Williams there and with Jerome Ford, it's all kind of the same thing for me. So give me the guy RB2 on a team that likes to run the ball and this late, and I'm going to scoop him up.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm actually going to play the waiver game, like you said, a little bit with this pick. But then I want to come to Jorge and talk about this 8th pick of the 12th round. Drew discussed him a little bit earlier. Chiga Kwankwo. We saw him have some flashes last year. We saw him have some moments. But really and truly, with the quarterback situation, with the Titans offense being what it is the upside somewhat limited this year with Chig?
If Ryan Tannehill's the quarterback, I think he is. You know, we look at what happened last year. He did have 3 top 10 finishes. You know, it's such a shit show in Tennessee, to be honest with you. If Will Levis was the quarterback, I'd feel more comfortable to Will Levis passing to the tight end versus Ryan Tannehill passing to the tight end. This is still a Derrick Henry first team until the wheels fall off with Derrick Henry. So I like it in the sense that, you know, tight end, here's the thing with tight end. You know, you have Kelsey, then you have, like, you know, your next 4 tight ends, and then it's anybody's ball game, right? You could have somebody who finishes 1 week with 7.9 points, and then the next person is at 6.8 points, but then, you know, all they need is another good week, and then all of a sudden they bump up in the rankings, right? So it really it really depends on what your expectations are at this point in the draft. If you you just need somebody to fill the roster spot and you've been punting tight end at this point, you know, somebody who's not competing for a lot of targets, I think, is the way to go. But again, tempering expectations because it is still Tennessee. But when Will Levis steps on the field, which I think you will see this year, I could definitely see Okonkwo having an increase in production.
Yeah, the Will Levis hype chain continues on 4th and Frames. Also, shout out the fantasy footballers for their nickname that they gave Will Levis and Bananarama, which I'm all in on. But to round out this 12th round, you had Daniel Jones, my guy, the 10th pick, Elijah Moore, the 11th, Sam Laporta in the 12th, Then to start the 13th, a guy I love, Nate Marcum, but we don't have time to discuss right now, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Kareem Hunt, the bot, with the 12th pick and the second pick of the 13th round. Gator J going Jalen Hyatt. Interesting upside in the 13th round, considering the lack of target competition over there. And I get to close this out. And we need to see what exactly is left. There is not much going on here. So you know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to ride with Russell Wilson right here, baby.
Broncos country.
Hey.
I don't think it's a bad pick, to be honest. I mean, like, you've got Mahomes, so the chances of you needing to start him are slim to none. But I do think that we saw the worst of Russell Wilson last year, and I think with Sean Payton coming in, with them adding Marvin Mims, I think that Russell Wilson is a little bit undervalued right now compared to where he should be. I do think we can expect to see, maybe not to Seattle level productions that we saw, but I do think there are better days ahead than what we saw last year from Russ.
And look, we even saw the best of him come out. He got much better after Nathaniel Hackett was fired in those last 3 games. We almost saw a different quarterback at that point. So it might have just been a coaching situation. We'll definitely find out a lot more this year with one of the elite offensive coaches in the league directing him. So here we are with the 5th pick of the 13th round. Courtney is on the clock, you guys, and we are waiting to see. She said we hate her team. That's hard to believe, Courtney. No one hates you. No one hates your team.
No, I do not hate your team, Courtney. I found plenty of times when you end up with a person who I was hope. It's hard to use the word snipe when it's 4 picks before, because you don't want to make the just make an assumption that 3 people in between us wouldn't have taken one of those guys. But it was a few of those. Now, does that make your team great, Courtney? Just because I like players, that is far from a tip of the cap, I'd say, because I'm not the smartest person.
I'll say this. I like Treylon Burks. I know I'm in the minority here, but I am a Treylon Burks fan. I'm a Treylon Burks believer. I think that he's in for a big year, and he's a guy that I'm buying across the board. So I like that pick as deep as she got him here.
Somebody that I like that she actually did speaking of Courtney now, a dynasty target profile on is the person I took right before, Juwan Johnson. Really excited for the upside with this player, especially with Derek Carr. He loves throwing to the tight ends. They brought in Gruden a couple days ago to help kind of steer the ship on how to develop the offense there in New Orleans with Carr as the quarterback. Hey, throw to the tight end, so that helps Juwan Johnson's upside. But for more information about Juwan Johnson, definitely check out Courtney's Dynasty Target profile, which will be coming out within the next week over at fantasyandframes.com.
And also, Courtney, I can't hate your team because you took one of the guys that I think this late, the 13th round. You look at a Nico Collins. With receivers being taken this late, how many of them have a path toward the wide receiver 1 chair in their offenses? Not many do, but Nico Collins does. Yeah. So I really like that pick as well.
He sure does.
Followed that up, we had Raheem Mostert, the bot doing the dirty work for us and picking Allen Robinson. Zach Evans in that 8th pick. Choose your warrior. Is Zach Evans really that much of a threat to Cam Akers, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. He's athletically gifted. Part of the issues that he had with TCU and Ole Miss were character issues. He did slip a bit in the draft, but he can catch the ball. We know he can run the ball. If Akers was to go down at all, Evans becomes that instant RB1 for the Los Angeles Rams. What that is going to be for what that team is built for this upcoming season, who knows? But again, I'm just, with the way I built my team here, I'm just trying to beat waivers, the week 1 waiver rush, and try to take guys that I could possibly see as week 1, week 2 high waiver ads come when the season starts. For me, it was Evans, Spears, or a deep sleeper of mine coming into the year, Tyquan Thornton. So he was one of the 3.
That's such a good point, too. In redraft leagues, whenever you get to that last pick, you're really looking at somebody that you can that has some high upside where you can find out very early on, are they going to be a high upside player? Can you just cut them? Because once week 1 waivers hit, you're going to want somebody that you can drop, somebody that you can, that you can cut loose so that you can find that next week 1 waiver ad. And I think Zach Evans is the perfect example of that, where if he comes out and plays 20% of the snaps, then okay, I can cut this guy loose and put a bid in for whoever that week 1 pop-off was for the week 2 waivers. And I think that's how you should approach the last round of your drafts. It's the same approach I took with my last pick with Deontay Foreman. I had already drafted Khalil Herbert a little earlier. We don't really know at this point whether it's going to be Khalil Herbert, Deontay Foreman, Roshan Johnson in week 1. But after week 1, we should have a pretty good idea of at least how that backfield looks like it's going to shake out, and then you can cut ties and try to play the waiver wire. So I like that strategy a lot, Chris.
Yeah, it's a great strategy, and we should always be looking forward, because in a one-season play like this, those waiver wires become more important than they do in Dynasty or anything else. So finally, to close out this draft, boys, we made it. Romeo Dubes with the 13th pick. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the bot, once again ruining things. Deontay Foreman, like you said, that week 1 waiver wire possibility. And then closing it out with Hunter Renfrow. So, Nate, I'm going to go ahead and ask you the tough question. Who won the draft?
Yeah, man? I know. I hate that question. I will say, especially because I got to go back to this page. We give a lot of shit to the other bots. The bot, Team 12 bot, was probably the best bot of all the bots. So I'll grade by bots, not by individual players. Team 2 bot, I'm going to give it to Team 2 bot. They won the bot battle. As much as I like 12, maybe I'm going back and forth. God, you guys might be the tiebreaker here. They both weighed on quarterback, which I thought was a savvy move, obviously, by the Drew brothers here that he did that same play. I think I like the combo of Higgins and Hopkins a little more. Man, I'm going to go Team 2 for my bot pick. I'm not going to pick an individual player. I'll let you guys have the honor of that.
And look, you also have to love Team 2's Austin Eckler, Dalvin Cook double take right there. In redraft, that's dangerous.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Shout out Team 2. They won the draft, and we love them for it. So, guys, that was fun. That was a blast. Love having you guys here. Appreciate Nate and Jorge joining us tonight. Those guys are awesome. We love you guys. You guys are like family. Thank you, viewers, for hanging out with us tonight. As always, you can find this on podcast. You can rewatch it on YouTube. We're probably going to post this draft on Twitter at some point, just having a great time with it. And so just remember, follow my guys over here tonight at Drew3MR, at FFChrisB, at Nate Marcum, and at Jorge B. Edwards on Twitter, as well as our other accounts at Fantasy and Frames, at Fourth and Frames, ton of other shows as well. Shoot the Gap, Dynasty 365, Best Ball Show. We got a ton of things going on. So with that, guys, I'm Rhett Manuel. You can find me on Twitter at rmanuelsports. And you guys be blessed, be wonderful, take care of yourselves, have a wonderful night. We're out.